And up here in the top right-hand side of the map, we have our red Protoss player from Team Super. He is Trigger. And Ben, I'm really glad that you actually brought up the group standings and stuff. And actually something that you brought up earlier during the kind of little pre-show section was just about Trigger and Epic and the players that Epic still had left to play. And I know you talked about him, or sorry, not actually Epic, Future. Future still had to play Epic. So that is going to be like a tough match for both sides, right, in terms of advancing out. The players that Trigger still has to play, though, are actually Estrella, which I think is going to be a very tough match, as well as also BioIce, which I think Trigger should be pretty heavily favored for. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on where every single map, including in this series right here, is going to matter for who can advance out, because I actually think it might very well come down to the maps with how things are likely to play out here.
Oh, no, definitely. I mean, the thing for Epic that's super good for him is the fact that he took down Scarlet, which is huge for advancing in this group, because Namshar, Future, those guys are not easy, and they're currently in the elimination spots here. So if Trigger and Epic do make it, I don't want to say it's like a passing of the baton from old to new, but it's definitely, well, would be super awesome for either of those players. By the way, I think this every time I see Epic, I'm always like, man, that guy could have been in one of those like those shows with super good looking people. Like,
dude, he's so good looking.
Like Dawson's Creek or like One Tree Hill or something. It's like I could see him being a cast member. It's like, oh yeah, I play StarCraft in my free time, you know? And it's just like, oh my goodness.
I'm so glad you said it, Ben, because it's actually like my gut reaction. I do this every time I see him at events and stuff, where like my gut reaction is like, oh, so handsome. So handsome. What a handsome young man. Like, God, it bugs me. But I'm so glad you said it, because I feel like I've said it too many times and it just comes across as weird.
I mean, we do all have that fondness of calling each other handsome. And then, you know, some people like Artosis do it, and they'll say it about some people that you're like, hold on a minute, Artosis, that's not entirely true, you know? Like, anyhow, quick little pause, but it is sorted out very quickly. And wow, yeah, these kids, they are quick. Saw Raynor lagging earlier. That guy couldn't sort it out for a while. These dudes in NA, fast fingers.
You know, it's that like the technological savviness of these NA kids. So many of them going to school for like computer science and stuff. Like, then you got Raynor there, who's basically his like semi-dad is Rotterdam, and God, asking Rotterdam for technical advice on streaming and stuff, like that's just asking for pain and suffering. So, you know, it kind of all makes sense to me, Ben.
I'm going to get onto that in a minute, because I have to. Because Rotterdam always makes fun of me for my tech-savvy abilities, or rather lack thereof them. Ooh. Epic's kind of going for a really cool build here, by the way. So it was like Marine. Yeah. Let me just check. He didn't scout, but he's gone for CC on the high ground, along with a third CC into fast Hellions. So this is a proper kooky build from him. But yeah, Rotterdam one time. So it was after we did Katowice online, right? And we all had those headsets and those weird setups. And Kevin had a really good microphone. And I noticed for like a month after streaming, he was still using this headset. And I was like, Kevin, why don't you use your really good microphone? And I ended up getting the info from him, and it was because his friend wasn't available to come and like change the plug or something for him. And I was like, oh my God, Kevin, you're so lazy. And he's like, oh, shut off, Benny. And I'm like, oh my goodness, my lazy friend. Anyhow, this Hellion does get in here. Nice little probe surround. Only one probe going down from this.
Yeah, looked a little bit scary there for a moment with a couple of those probes getting lower on hit points, but good pick off there. The Adept also gets pushed back since the Cyclones popped on out. But overall, the Adept doing also some nice damage. It's not so much just the direct damage it was able to do, but the indirect damage of delaying the command center from landing and everything. The extra little scouting information of seeing the reactor still on that barracks and kind of seeing the Cyclone popping on out. And this is actually going to allow Trigger to say, yeah, I think I can be a bit aggressive. This gets a little bit dangerous with the Cyclone there. You really have to make sure you're micing this well, but if you mic her well, you can do exactly that and break those Cyclone lock-ons.
You definitely can. He gets over here and he's like, oh, there's actually a tank here, a few Marines or what have you. Obviously, this is mainly just for scouting info as for what Trigger can really find out, because so far, when you arrive at an expo, and then there's no expo there, then you arrive later and it's there and the setup and he's got the tank and stuff, you can start to be like, aha, so what is going on behind this? And right now, he's got the observer heading on over, but he's already probably thinking and trying to suss out exactly what's going on. But everything that Trigger's done as a response to this beforehand, early third, gets down the Robo now, gets down the Forge. He knows he's at least safe for the time being.
Absolutely. He is going to be safe for a while, and now especially that he has Blink, even if there was something coming on out, it really is going to be Trigger who should be the one controlling a majority of the map. Observer's going to come on forward and get that additional scouting information you were talking about. It's going to play it safe. He knows that there's a Cyclone around, and Cyclones, if the Terran player knows that there's an Observer around, Cyclones love going after those Observers. So got to be a little bit cautious about that, but isn't going to directly spot out that third command center. Probably has some intuition about it, especially given the timing of his own third CC or third Nexus.
Yeah, I like what Epic's doing here, just kind of stacking up units to what he thinks is out of vision. But, you know, that Observer kind of sees the Marauders being built. And let's have a look. See, Epic going up to 5 barracks before the starport's done. Like, yeah, he's absolutely looking to do a push at some point in time, which is it's going to be powerful. It's going to pack a real punch. Like, combat shields, +1, stim, they're all going to be done for this. It's just, Trigger's also going to be ready for it. Like, first Colossus is out now. Nice scan goes down, so he gets to see that it is Colossus tech, which is a big deal. But yeah, it's going to be tough because Glittering Ashes, it's one of the bigger maps in the pool. Getting across this and doing a push and dealing damage is a whole other story.
Yeah, I mean, if we end up actually seeing Trigger win this series and we decide to have like an interview or something, or even just if we don't, I feel like I'll Discord message him and be like, did you just kind of have like some suspicion that he's going to try and do some really big macro play and go for like this kind of timing push? And you're just like, well, I'll just have all of my timings line up with your timings and then I'll be good. Like everything just works out if I have all of my stuff finishing up right as yours does too.
Oh, if he gets that tank, that's actually very annoying because Epic right now wants to keep on making the tanks. He scanned earlier that he's against Colossus, and tank production's way better against that than the Widowmine. So yeah, already a nice little victory there for Trigger. One thing that's been good for Epic, and I've been keeping a close eye on this, is SV count. Look at it, Ravi. It's 62 to 65. Very, very healthy for a Terran.
Epic is definitely the NA player that is known for just being a macro machine and really, really liking to dig down to those kind of situations. So don't hate it at all. Trigger's army is looking pretty damn scary, though. This is a good number of charge lots. The Colossus a little bit disjointed and actually having trouble getting around. Guardian Shield not actually protecting any units right now. And we're starting to see that Epic is probably pretty happy with how these trades have gone so far. He's going to end up losing one of the siege tanks over here, but this Stutter micro back is giving him some pretty good trades.
Thing is, that was just Zealots being evaporated there. Like nothing else of real value, whereas Epic, any kind of gas unit that he loses, look how threatened he feels. Yeah. He's actually pulling SCVs before the fight begins, and Trigger sees everything, man. The Observer saw everything, and warping in a lot of High Templars for Archons most likely here. It's going to be a big push from Trigger.
This is definitely a scary moment. The Viking count really not that high, and actually already losing 2 additional Vikings. This is the go time moment over here. Siege tanks are going to be trying to get as much damage as possible. SCVs being pulled from both the natural and the third base. Missile Druid's helping out versus the Colossus, oddly enough. And while a lot of SCVs are falling, it does look like Epic is starting to make some progress, but the Colossus in the back line's doing so much damage. 18 kills on one, a handful of kills on the other one as well. And I think with a reinforcing Zealot wave, it's actually going to be enough to start pushing Epic just a little bit further back. And you know, if Trigger gets home, even with just a few units, even if he didn't get home with any units, if things just traded out dead even, Epic is still going to be worse off because he had to trade 39 workers for it.
I am so happy at Trigger just backing off a little bit. Like the fact that I will not let this drop. I have seen Zest lose for me so many times in that tier league thing, where he just keeps on pushing. I'm like, Zest, you can go back, you can. So Trigger realizes he killed a lot of SCVs, killed a lot of units. He's got a 4th base on the way. He did the damage he needed to do. That was actually a very mature response. And now he's going to kind of poke in a little bit, see how it's going. But he knows he's already very far ahead.
Indeed he is, and you can already see Epic pulling what few SCVs he does still have around at that natural expansion. Still very afraid. This is an awkward angle to try and also defend. You really can't give up a whole lot of ground. But as soon as you do, either your natural or your third is going to be in some trouble. A very aggressive blink forward there with the Stalkers. Not sure if I'm fully about that, as Vikings are going to get to start whittling away at some of the Colossus. But at the end of the day, I think there's just too much here for Trigger. And he is going to be looking to get a comfortable 1-0 lead in this game.
It's always sad when you're a Terran and you kind of look at your supply and it's like, oh, it's 50? And I'm on 3 bases? And it's like, oh, got nothing else alive. But yeah, I liked Epic's attempt this game to do something very weird, which was 3cc, really fast 2 Hellion and stuff. It's just, if ever the Protoss locks onto you being greedy, they can leapfrog you without it taking too much effort, which is why a lot of these 3cc plays, you really have to be able to put on some form of pressure, be it like a 3 racks or something like that. So if you don't really get much done, and the Protoss is with the kind of like ability to just lock onto what you're doing, you can be in a lot of trouble. Obviously, it puts a little bit of a guess game for them as to what they're up against, but if you do something that's kind of okay against everything, like a blink opening, where you get out at decently early obs, you're going to be all right. And Trigger that game, even though he went up against a very greedy build, he didn't have to do too much to make sure that he wasn't behind at all that game. So well played by him, and it's a nice build that he's been doing throughout this tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess one thing that does kind of circle back in my mind is like the timing of Epic moving out. If he had identified how ready Trigger was going to be with that army, all those charge lots and the Colossus and everything, just all the stuff lined up there perfectly for Trigger with Epic's big move out, I do wonder if Epic had not had to start taking those trades in the center, if there would have been an opportunity for him to just be a little bit more hunkered back and see like, oh, you're coming to me, I guess I don't have to move out, and I can kind of just like literally bunker down and be ready for the attack if things may have gone differently for him there.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens in the rest of this series, because one game where it doesn't really pan out for you, but I don't like that was just a good PvT. Like neither one of them made any sort of crucial mistake. In fact, it was pretty damn good play on both sides. But we're getting right on into it. 2K Atmosphere will be the map of choice here, and spawning over in the top right as the Blue Terran, it is Epic.
And down here in the bottom left-hand side, we have the red Protoss player. It is Super Trigger.
For a second there, I thought you were calling him Super Trigger. Like,
Team Super's Trigger, I know.
Yeah,
it's semi-intentional to put it that way.
I just started thinking like, oh, he's changed his name to Super Trigger? So cool.
That actually would be a cool name. You know, I mean, if we can have Spirit and also him formerly being known as Soul, and we can have Soul Spirit, like, why can't we have Super Trigger and Trigger?
I'm kind of sad. I'm kind of sad that Marine Lord is playing Age of Empires 4 right now, because I always enjoyed like Marine Lord versus Hero Marine, and it being like, oh, who's the better Marine?
Yeah, that was always a fun one. I mean, then there's always the really fun ones where it's
like Nama and Mana.
Yeah, I was gonna say like 1 or 2 letters off on their names. You're like, oh no, this is gonna be a series to cast. Especially when it ends up being a mirror.
Yeah, I liked Sue interviewing Sue.
Oh yeah, SUE interviewing SOO. I like that one.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. All right, this game, Epic did opt for a proxy barracks, and it isn't a fake proxy. Totally on the other side of the map here. Gonna go for a factory back at home. So far more aggressive build here. Love that bunker location, actually using Trigger's pylon against him here, but Trigger with the wherewithal, is that the phrase? I don't know.
Yeah.
But he brings over a second probe just to delay it a little bit. Gets the shield battery on the low ground as well. Trigger's actually doing quite well, but already this Reaper being a proper nuisance.
Yep, already being pretty gosh darn annoying, picking off one of those probes. And I have to say, I think that this is actually Epic doing something that I know more recently he's more okay with doing this kind of stuff, but this is very much so against his normal profile, I would say, as a player in terms of style. And oh god, I love the micro over there, dodging the shots from the Stalker with the SCV while trying to get a little repair time in here and there wherever he can. This is so annoying. He's target firing down the shield battery, so there's no other shield battery to heal the shield battery. It's gonna go down.
He's actually going to get it as well, and that's forcing more shield batteries, which Trigger doesn't want to be making. Look at his probe production as well, Ravi. It's not there whatsoever. Now it's back and resuming, but a Terran being on equal workers with a Protoss. Oh my god, he lost his sword.
Oh my god.
This is
that
really...
is massive.
Wait, why is he... He doesn't have to... I mean, he's getting out of here a little bit early, I feel, because that could have been problematic for a bit longer. But he is going to keep those 2 Reapers alive, and he's got reacted Hellion production back at home. So he's going to want to carry on the pressure. I like this out of Epic, but I do think he could have kept that alive a bit longer.
Yeah, I guess maybe in his mind, he thinks, like, there's already 2 shield batteries there that are about to finish up. Like, I'm not going to get anything really done anymore. But I'm kind of with you. I think he probably could have gotten something done more. Maybe there was something in his build order that's like, the 75 minerals will let me throw down my 3rd CC or something a little faster.
Could be, could be. Look how Epic's playing, man. This is kind of like a TY-esque build, where it's very aggressive, but really well mapped out. So there's an armory on the way, Widow Mines, and it's kind of technical, right? Like, it's wave 1, wave 2, then wave 3, and 4 Widow Mines with Cloak showing up very soon. Like, Trigger's so fortunate that his build kind of is very good across the board, because that Robo can't be done fast enough at this point.
Yeah, I think this is actually one of the areas that Epic actually hits his stride in a lot of ways, where he is very, very good at just hitting these kind of pre-prepared builders or styles and stuff. And I think it's actually part of the reason why not necessarily like just the straight up cheeses that are only like that one wave of aggression are necessarily the thing that Epic likes going for. He likes going for the tiered kind of longer term approach. And well, we're going to see that second wave coming on forward. Widow Mines dropping in. 2 Widow Mines inside the main base. Not likely to get a ton of damage done over here, but at the other base, we got the Hellions mixing in at the same time as the Widow Mines. And well, gets some Stalkers, gets a few probes, not a ton of damage.
Probes ain't bad, and the lost mining time definitely not bad. He was kind of unfortunate that one of these Widow Mines shot a probe that entered the assimilator. It's always a bad feeling, but all things said and done, resources lost have absolutely equaled up now, and it was definitely in favor of Epic. So you can definitely say that Trigger's opening did quite well against this, because this was not easy to hold, but he made it look all right.
Yeah, I think especially the Hellions also going down during all of that means that, like, it's not just the typical Widow Mine drop, it's the Widow Mines plus the Hellion investment and the Reaper all going down around that time, and that kind of makes it a little bit more costly, I guess, to lose all of that and only get the 6 or so workers. But now, at the end of the day, this means that Trigger has a lot more map control. He's going to be moved across the map with Blink, with a Warp Prism as well. And what does Epic actually have behind all this? He does have 1 Siege Tank now popped out. He has a Marauder and a few Widow Mines, but all the Widow Mines are actually in the medevac right now. They're not really going to be in a position to help defend against, say, the Stalkers.
Yeah, this is one of those moments where it's like, it feels really bad if you're in Epic shoes, because it's like, you didn't expect this at all, and your stim is going to get cancelled, your bio is going to be significantly weaker, and Trigger's taking a bit of a funny fight here. He won't be able to blink out with everything unless he does it like this, and he's doing it very nicely. That tank, though, doing a decent job. The Warp Prism being utilized with the blink as well to keep these units alive. Widow Mine drop on his side of the map as well. This game is getting killed. Oh, another Widow Mine into the probe on the assimilator. So sad.
Yeah, Trigger finally stops his micro on the other side of the map and does pay attention. It actually really just doesn't lose that many workers at the end of the day. He did lose quite a few Stalkers, but I would say delaying stim and killing off half of your opponent's army is probably worth it. It's probably worth the Stalkers that he lost. Trigger's still going to be thrilled about how this game has gone in that regard, especially since he has a 3rd Nexus about to finish.
That's the big deal, because right now, if we just look at the numbers, it's like, oh, it's equal supply. Oh my goodness, that's ballsy, but those Marauders came out just in the nick of time. It's the fact that Trigger, okay, finally gets that medevac in his base. That's good as well. Stops the pressure. But it's the fact that he has that 3rd base done. So worker count very even, but he has slowed down absolutely everything. And now he's able to pump out units, get the charge on the go. The Warp Prisms as well. He can still continue to be aggressive. A proper nuisance here. Oh.
This is definitely getting a little bit brutal in terms of the harassment that Trigger's been able to bring to Epic's side. Epic still not restarting that third there as finally SCV getting started on up with that. But Trigger has just been able to continuously poke and prod. He is going to have a few more units moving over to the natural expansion. The Stalkers thinking maybe there's not that many units inside the bunker. There were maybe a few more than he thought. So loses a Stalker in exchange for some SCVs, but just Trigger has full control, it feels like, over the entire map right now. There's not a lot that Epic can do outside of just hunker down and try and defend.
One scary thing for Trigger is the fact that he's been microing his Stalkers, but they're all red. So if a push is to come, which we see that it is, if the fight actually does happen, yeah, Trigger's army is pretty damn wounded, and that's a scary number of bio units, especially accompanied with a couple of tanks and Vikings as well. You can see these low health Stalkers just immediately dying.
Trigger really does need a little bit more time to actually get his units up. He does have charge finished up, so he can warp in charge lots that'll help complement this army. He's got a single Colossus. He has a couple of sentries, or some like force fields or guardian shield if he waits a little bit longer for it. I think any time you can buy by forcing siege ups and stuff is going to be extremely helpful. And was he looking to segment? No, he's not going to segment off any zealots to try and do any kind of flank. He's just going to try to go for it for a moment, but realizes no. Siege tanks are siege up. You do not want to fight like that.
This is actually really good play by Trigger because he only has one observer on the map, which on the far left side of his base. So he really wants to just slow down these tanks. You can see vision is so powerful. So as soon as he sees this army moving, he's like, oh crap, I need to make you siege. So that's what he's trying to do here, trying to slow down his opposition. Doesn't really want to take the fight. And you can see everything that he's doing. He's just trying to slow down the push. He's actually handling this really damn well.
Yeah, a single gas geyser is going to get taken out, but I think that's a worthwhile loss for a little bit of time bought instead. Charge lots going across the map. Going to take out the bunker first, then going after the SCVs, which are going to get followed all the way into the main base, actually opening the gates potentially for these Zealots to do even more harassment. Oh my god, if the Zealots kept actually going after the SCVs, I think the friendly fire would have killed like 12 or 13 more. Oh,
I think you're absolutely right, but these SCVs, they're not long for this world at this point, and 20 going down now. That's exactly what he needed. Epic is behind in supply, but he is pressuring this third base really damn hard, and Trigger, he's making a lot of very mature plays where he's just like, you know what? Why fight into this? I can't really break this. So I'm just going to move on over to the third. I've done the economic damage I needed to. And look at the work count, 60 to 24. I think this is great play out of Trigger.
This is fantastic, actually. It's putting him in a really, really awesome spot just because, like you said, he is already so far ahead economically. He can live with the fact that he's on two bases for a little bit. Goes out to the siege tanks as they're unsieged. This is the moment he was waiting for. Disruptor also in the mix is going to take out a lot of charge lots, more so than the bio, and actually causes Epic to do a little bit of a turnaround moment over here. Disruptor going to buy a little bit of space in time for himself. Maybe a shield battery overcharge is going to be overdue for this moment, but unfortunately not available on these shield batteries.
Yeah, can't be used on these. They're not near a Nexus anymore, and Epic takes a pretty damn good fight there, mainly because Trigger got a little trigger happy, it has to be said. And here, he's kind of poking with these Stalkers, getting some decent trades, even gets a Viking here as well. Supply is still very close between these players, but we have to remember that Epic is kind of like the Black Knight in the Monty Python. He's got his legs and arms chopped off at this point. He can't recuperate as well as Trigger can.
Yeah, he has been remaking a lot of his workers. He's been making a few here and there. He's back up to 39 from 24 earlier, but okay, he needs to keep taking trades like this, where he's actually trading out versus some of the important units there for Trigger. And if he can find a kill on like a Colossus or some more Disruptors, that I think I'm all on board with. And I actually am amazed. He is finding little trades like these and still just replenishing his worker count behind it. Because remember, he does have a third base.
I really wish that Trigger had like a Templar Archives done or something. And yet now he thinks about it, because look at his gas bank, Ravi. That's big. He's going to start retaking his third again. But if he had a good 3 extra Archons or 4 or something in this mix, which he pretty damn well could have afforded, oh, it'd be so good against this. But man, these Disruptors are killing himself.
Yeah, I mean, the Disruptors are hurting him, and also there's just no shield batteries or anything to fall back to at this space. A Warpin's going to be happening on top of the bios, so a lot of these charge lots go down, and Epic able to tie up the series 1-1. A very action-packed game, but damn, Epic did a great job capitalizing on a bad situation.
Yeah, I think I gave I gave Trigger a lot of credit for how he handled that game, but then all of a sudden, he really felt he could take on that army much better than he could, and he blinked on the tanks, but it's like, you're blinking on the tanks, which is fine, but then it was like 3 tanks for 12 Stalkers or something. Not a good trade for him at all, because blinking into that much bio when you have no armor upgrades and stuff, yeah, a bit of a death sentence. So there's this kind of like devil on his shoulder there, and an angel. The angel's like, hey man, just move on back. Just, it's fine, it's fine. Then the little devil's like, but do the blinky thing. And it just, very often, whenever you're thinking that, just don't listen to it if you're a Protoss player.
Yeah, I'm so glad you also brought up the armor upgrades, because that's a big thing about that as well, is that he was prioritizing all those weapon upgrades, which actually pairs very well with what he was going for in terms of the Colossus tech and everything. And a lot of the Blink Stalkers benefit really heavily from that. But when it comes to just taking on the straight up fights and stuff, the charge loads don't really last super crazy long. So going for those hyper aggressive plays like that, I think it can start backfiring very, very quickly, as we saw. But man, I mean, regardless of how we got there, we get to move into a game number 3 between these 2 players, and it has been a pretty big doozy, I would say. I think that like you were saying, Trigger has been doing a really, really good job in the earlier stages. Even in, I think, the first game, it felt like Trigger had a really nice handle on how, I would say, like, builders and stuff were like shaping up, and just kind of anticipating a little bit of maybe how Epic wanted to play. So I am very interested to see how game number 3 goes. Is Trigger going to be able to keep up this kind of trend, or is this kind of like a turning point now for Epic where he is going to get a little bit more confident about how he's opening up?
I think Epic definitely should be quite confident. Like, that opening definitely didn't do as... Like, he got very unlucky with some of those Widowmine shots. I wouldn't be surprised if he does something weird again. Because, yeah, that was not just like one Widowmine that hit a probe going to a similar... It was like 2 or 3, which... Very unfortunate. Any one of those can kill like 2 or 3 probes apiece. So he could have been even more in good shape. Remember, also, he lost his stim. Like, this wasn't your normal, like, hey, everything's going fine, I'm a Terran, woohoo. It was a lot of things were going kind of awry for him. Anyhow, we'll be Hardwire here, where everything will be settled. And spawning over in the top right as our blue Terran, it is Epic.
Down here in the bottom left, we have our red Protoss player, is Team Super's Trigger. I say Team Super, but actually the logo looks like it says Super Team.
Yeah, it is the best.
It is not just a team, it's a super team. As he throws down a building to obscure his team's logo, my God, does this man not respect his team?
I think he respects it a lot. Like, you know, get the extra boost from your team on your gateway.
Ah, like extra pylon power.
Yeah.
I like.
Can never have too many, you know. Alrighty. So we don't have a proxy Rex or a fake proxy. It's totally a standard one. This map is quite narrow. If you look at it on the minimap, it kind of looks a bit smaller, but it's still fairly decent rush distance to your opponent. Definitely a nice battleground for both of these to really test their mettle. I think Trigger's going to stick with that blink kind of play that he likes, because it feels like he naturally likes to go for the 3 base setup. But as we saw in last game, he's also very willing to just be like, oh, you're doing that? Okay, I'm going to come and blink on you. And he did it pretty damn good, honestly.
Yeah. Not to like out Epic too much, but when you're talking about like, yeah, we're going to see like more normal kind of builds and no proxies or anything. Do you know what I mean when there's the kind of players that are macro players, but they start trying to mix in like cheeses and stuff? And I feel like they always do it on game 2. It's like hyper predictable. That's like, if they're going to mix in the cheese, they always do it on the second game. I kind of feel like Epic is at that stage where I can see like game 2 rolls around. I'm like, maybe he'll do something. Game 3 rolls around. I'm like, Epic won't cheese. I don't think it'll happen.
So because they're predictable, you feel that as soon as they start becoming a bit unpredictable, they become predictable again?
I'm not following what you're talking about now, Ben.
Oh, never mind, Ravi, never mind. Okay.
You're too big brain for me, man. You're too big brain.
What can I say? I remember, like, I used to go through phases where I was predictable, like I know it. Like I used to play big macro games all the time. And then I was like, you know what? Screw this. And then for the next month, I'd only proxy 2 racks. And then people were like, oh, you only 2 racks. Then I go back to the macro game kind of thing. So I was kind of like, I liked what I did, and I did what I know, kind of thing. So and it is good to always have these moments where you do kind of showcase different things and different scout patterns and stuff. This Stalker already annoying.
Yeah, I mean, just no bunker down here on the low ground is going to be pretty annoying. The Stalker taking a lot of hits, but the Marines are so low. I think there's going to be a potential for 2 Marines to die, but no. Looks like if Epic micros as well, he should not lose any more Marines, right? Oh, well, the Adept's here now.
Yeah, and Trigger again going for this Blink Stalker play. Like, so yeah, of the 2 of them, like Epic's been doing a different build every time. It's Trigger that, and I remember this when I used to play him quite a bit on the EU ladder. He loved his Blink Stalker kind of plays, and here he has to be so careful. Cyclone Boy is going to come out.
Oh, it's dead.
Needs to recall that Adept if he wants to keep him alive. Oh, actually left the main base open there. That was, oh, to his death as well.
It's a trap. Yeah, that was not the shade that I think he was going to want. And now we end up having an awkward situation where Protoss player who loses their first couple of early game gateway units gets a little bit dicier. Just Protoss players tend to have fewer units that are all a little bit more powerful, but nice breaking of the Cyclone lock-on with the high ground. Oh, loses a Stalker over there. Okay, Ben, I'm a little afraid about snowballing potential here.
You should be very afraid. If Epic pulls, like, let's say 5 SCVs, I actually think Trigger could just lose the game, but lost his Cyclone. The 5 SCVs aren't being pulled with this because he's doing kind of like a little push here. Like, it could have been really damn scary keeping that Cyclone alive as well, but we'll see what happens. Trigger is getting himself situated on 3 bases, getting shield batteries as well, getting an Immortal out even, which that isn't what he really wanted, but you have to respect these kind of pushes. And that Viking, if you land that bad boy, that's just going to be a lot of extra damage being pumped out on these Stalkers.
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine what else the Viking could be used for outside of landing for this kind of little push in here. But Marines are going to start getting picked off on the reinforcing path. But it also means that this army basically gets over to the 3rd base without any real interruption. Immortal here by itself, and that means that the hardened shields get knocked out, or I should say the barrier upgrade. Now the 3rd base under fire, and Trigger still waiting patiently. Is he waiting for a moment to sweep on in? Is there going to be a moment to sweep in?
There absolutely is, and that tank goes down pretty damn fast. The Immortal as well goes down pretty damn quickly. You now have a bunch of Blink Stalkers, which are real damn good. Oh, okay. Epic realizes, okay, I don't really want to take this. Oh, no.
Oh, no, we should have gone toward the main.
Oh, that was very unfortunate. I was a little bit surprised because I felt that tank was coming and was really close to the fight. I thought he was just going to pick up and get on the tank, or not pick up at all, because it was only 6 Blinky boys here that were actually ready to fight. So there's definitely been a few things here where I like Epic's build, but I think he wasn't shameless enough about executing it.
Yeah, I mean, if he had just, like you said, been even more aggressive and a little bit more gambly about it, I guess, is a one way to put it, and just saying, like, I think I'll get some good damage done here. What if I just commit to do the damage? Yeah, I think maybe something even better could have happened for him, but now he's kind of put into an awkward spot. It's not the end of the world by any way, shape, or form, but yeah, it's not exactly a super fun place to be.
It's not, but his tank count's getting higher, and Trigger's again going into Colossus. Now he's getting the charge as well, which is smart, because you know what are tanks good against? They're pretty good against Stalker Colossus. Oh, I love this drop that he's doing. This is a big Gabe drop right here.
Gonna be a scary one. Trigger was doing a pretty good job in a lot of the previous games of getting up the Observer to just sit over that kind of dead airspace around his main base, but this game, he's sending it across the map to get some scouting information. He's prioritizing making the Colossus, a very reasonable call to make. This double drop might actually catch him very, very off guard with an army that isn't exactly hyper mobile. There are a few Stalkers that are a bit more mobile, but it does take some time to get all of these units over to the main.
This kind of drop, though, it's okay. This is good. He's doing his move out at the same time, which is good. Look at that pylon, by the way. That is just a little bit too late. Oh, he flies on top of it. Why?
I guess when in doubt, just assume that they've seen you. Might be part of it.
I mean, maybe, but that was a missed opportunity, Ravi, because he would have went behind that. If he waited in that dead airspace, which he well could have done, this could have been literally a game-winning play if he waited for a fight to happen.
I fully agree. I really could just see maybe like it's the snap judgment thing of like, did he see me? Shoot, I shouldn't risk game 3 on it and just go for the free damage. But yeah, this is going to be a tough spot now, as what could have been an amazing position, Epic is now going to have a harder time with. And he's actually just going to pull his entire army back. I was actually thinking there's like the second level of the mind game there, where you now have a bunch of units from Trigger that are forced into the main base, and then you just pull everything over to the third base and actually go for the attack. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen.
No, definitely. I like this game's just lining up to kind of go to Trigger's comfort zone here, where he's got a really good army together, got a bunch of Archons, Zealots. It's a good number of Colossus as well. He doesn't tend to go over the 3 mark, and look at this wraparound. What are tanks bad against? A lot of charge lots. What does Trigger have? A lot of charge lots. This is maybe one of the not so good engagements he could have, actually. But he's going to pull all the SCVs again, and he's running into the meat grinder. These Colossus not really getting the angles that they wanted. Both of them taken out by the tanks. That was a terrible attack position by Trigger.
Yeah, I mean, good focus are there from Epic with the Vikings and the siege tanks on the Colossus, knocking them out so quickly. But at the end of the day, Epic barely even lost 8 workers with all of the SCVs he pulled at the third base. That was, like you said, a really terrible engagement at the end of the day for Trigger. Even though he was setting up a great wraparound, just seemed like it was a little bit misdivided and also just a little mistimed.
It's always deceiving when you're at the top of this hill kind of thing, but you kind of had to run down this hill to then run up. And like, it's the perfect position for these tanks to be. If his army was way more south and he was coming in from just the north and the south, way better. But yeah, here the Colossus just weren't getting shots off, and they're just getting absolutely owned by the entire army. I'm actually super scared for Trigger this game, because when Epic gets these ghosts out, which he now has, his army packs a serious punch.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, funny enough, Disruptor. Okay. Epic notices it in time. I was like, that could be something that just evens up the game in a 4-second window, but no. Epic going to be on top of it. I was going to say, Epic, I actually think, has some really good late game army control. It's going to have to be managing that while at the same time being bombarded with Zealots in both the third base and the main base with a Warp Prism. This is actually going to be Epic just saying, let's go for it, because I don't think I can really get back in time. I'm just going to be throwing myself into a worse position if I do. Let's see what we can get actually done over here.
Oh, this is getting gnarly here. Epic going to lose pretty much all his eco. He's got to deal with disruptors. Trigger's doing a good job of fighting slightly away from his base, but he's losing lots of valuable units as well. These disruptor shots, first one, fairly juicy. Supply so close. Epic's down to 6 SCVs. 3.
This is do or die.
0.
This is the moment he has to win the game with now. 0 workers on the map. There is no fallback plan. Epic's army is so stimmed up, though. I mean, forget the disruptor hits. Just literally the stalker hits will basically one-shot everything over here. Going after the Robo, I can definitely get behind that. Knock out the potential disruptors from coming on out. Focus Fire is down 2 of them. Ends up losing a little bit more of his army, and I just don't know there's the sustainability that Epic needs to continue this base trade, but he's going to continue going for it. And he is actually starting to heal up some of these units. He's starting to stabilize back at home.
I think Trigger's in a world of trouble, actually, Ravi, because he's got 37 probes, same supply. I mean, look what he's making right now. He's actually starting to use that entire gas bank that he had on Archons. Definitely not a bad unit to have. And Epic, he's going to meet up with the rest of his units here. This is super damn close.
It really is. I mean, I was really afraid for Epic when just all of his units were literally 1 tap away from dying from anything. I just imagined the Archon getting a single volley off and killing off like 6 Marines. But now he's had the time to regenerate, and I think these disruptors are going to be so important. 1 Viking does get tagged over there. Archon's going to have a hard time actually getting into a nice angle where all of them are going to be involved in the fight. It's all coming down to this final engagement here, Ben.
Epic, there's definitely a few of these engagements where he stims his whole army, but doesn't really do anything with it, which is exactly what Trigger wants. And the last minute here where he's just been running around, it's not been good for him. And look at Trigger. He just knows how to buy time. And there's a few situations where I feel Epic could have dived in for a few disruptor shots, but just being very timid with his army. And yeah, Trigger, he's done well to clinch this one, because this wasn't easy.
Yeah, this has been brutal. Focus fire on the disruptors. Does get 2 of them for actually having to back on off. Steam is still not worn off, so he's going to continue to poke on further forward. Depowers the Robo, so no more disruptors. Additional disruptors going to be coming on out, but look at the Archon count. It's just a massacre with the low health bio units. Trigger is able to push this army back and narrowly, by the skin of his teeth, clinches this best of 3. My God, smile on both of their faces from